The Republican majority in the House is getting smaller. Ohio Republican Bill Johnson announced he is leaving office January 21st. The next day, he'll become president of Youngstown State University. His departure, along with Kevin McCarthy's early retirement and George Santos's expulsion, means the House GOP caucus will shrink from 222 to 219. That means they can only afford to lose 2 votes on any legislation that they hope to pass, or they'll need support from Democrats. CBS News congressional correspondent Scott MacFarlane joins me now to discuss this landscape. Scott, first, remind us of all the things, or at least the top agenda items, that Congress will have to face when they return.
John, this is a fragile Republican majority at a uniquely fragile time because there are 2 pressing deadlines that are just weeks away. 2 different deadlines to prevent government shutdowns. The first one comes January 19th. If it's breached, major government programs involving transportation and some health services would be shut down. Then another one in February, which, among other things, would fund the military. That deadline's coming. There are also these pushes to pass border security legislation, aid for Ukraine, aid for Israel, and all of this is a race with that narrow majority. But don't picture in your mind's eye race cars going around the track. Picture bumper cars at the amusement park slamming into each other, because in some of these cases, John, they don't even have a focal point of how to get through the emergency. The government spending deadlines that are coming, they don't even have what they call a top-line number, an overall target for government spending. We're real close to deadlines to not have that baseline information. And with immigration reform, as we're about to discuss, John, both sides are speaking different languages.
Absolutely, and so you know where I'm headed. Speaker Johnson was at the border with many of the members of his Republican conference. What is the state of things on those immigration negotiations, which, as you already pointed out, are tied to funding for Ukraine and Israel?
The negotiations underway in the U.S. Senate have, according to the people in the room, shown some signs of progress. They were at it over the holiday week, I'm told. Multiple sources tell me they did Zoom meetings between Christmas and New Year's to keep the talks going, even though they weren't here. That in itself is a small sign of progress. The negotiators exited tonight from the Senate negotiating room without any target for a date when they're going to have a negotiation breakthrough or a date for a deadline. But some of this is trivial, John, because the U.S. House Speaker in Eagle Pass, Texas today, with dozens of his colleagues at the border, said what they want is the House Republican plan, not some Senate compromise. The House Republican plan toes a much harder line. Among many other things, John, it would infuse more money into efforts to build the border wall and other more stringent restrictions on what the administration can do. Those things are non-starters with Democrats in the Senate. So if this is going to happen quickly, there's going to have to be some change in the complexion of the talks or the positions on each side.
Right. And so more broadly, outside of immigration, but it obviously applies to immigration too, Scott, how does such a small majority change Johnson's strategy? Is he going to really try to get everything with just Republican votes, or is such a small majority mean of course he's going to have to get Democrats to get anything through the Congress?
For some of these issues we discussed, there's going to have to be a bipartisan compromise. The House Republicans have had trouble passing baseline things when their majority was larger. With just a 2-seat margin, it seems impossible some of these things will get done. And to keep the government open, you definitely need bipartisan support because both chambers have to do it. Now, on immigration, this gets trickier because this is the primary issue for some House Republicans. This is their hill to die on. The idea of House Republicans getting behind a Senate compromise on immigration, that seems fanciful, if not farcical right now. Will the Speaker let something on the floor that Democrats support on immigration? That's a question that's going to define this Congress as January begins.
We're going to be talking a lot in the next few weeks, and thank goodness for you, Scott MacFarlane in Washington. Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, John.